going back to the temple, construction of the temple and the building of the temple, it was a very bold project to undertake all those years ago. Can you briefly explain how it was conceptualized and how it came to fruition?
So as I explained, that in 1982, Pramukh Swami Maharaj, he opened the temple across the road. But again, that temple was a simple temple with a hall. It didn't have, it was a big hall, which obviously you have seen, but it didn't have many facilities. And it wasn't a traditional Hindu temple as envisioned by Yogi Ji Maharaj.
Yeah.
So Pramukh Swami Maharaj in 1982 initiated the search for different sites where a traditional Hindu temple could be constructed. And that took him and the devotees at that time, the trustees, to many sites in and around London. I think at least 30 to 40 sites were looked at that time. And eventually we had land in Harrow. We didn't get the permission. Land was looked at in many of the different places. And even the Neasden High School, Pramukh Swami Maharaj even conducted the rituals there in 1990. But then this land where we are at the moment, it was realized that this land was for sale. So Pramukh Swami Maharaj, he said, let's go for this land. It may be difficult, but all those obstacles were, looked after, and this land was acquired in 1990. In 1991, Pramukh Swami Maharaj came in July, especially to conduct the foundation stone rituals to mark the beginnings, the groundbreaking ceremony of the temple, to mark the beginning of the construction. And construction actually began in 1992. And the whole concept came about that Pramukh Swami wanted a traditional, spired Shikharbadda temple, traditional, using stone. And at that time, there were many people who said, this is not possible in this country. It will be too difficult. We don't know which stone will be suitable. There were so many questions. But Pramukh Swami Maharaj's insistence in the sense that he knew that this was the wish of his guru, the vision of his guru, Yogi Ji Maharaj. So he said, whatever obstacles may come, we have Bhagwan Swaminarayan, we have Yogi Ji Maharaj, they will guide us. So Pramukh Swami Maharaj, he got the senior devotees together, the management, the trustees, and certain devotees who were experts in these fields. And he basically gave them the responsibility that you do the research and you decide what is the best thing to do here. You come to me in India, we'll discuss with the senior sadhus there and the senior volunteers. So then this whole thing came about. There were trips to India by the architects, what type of designs to use for the temple, for the Haveli, and so many plans, so many places were visited. And at the end, this was in early 1992, it was decided to build this temple of Bulgarian limestone and Italian and Indian marble, and go for the Haveli architecture look, the wooden Haveli architecture look for the actual, the cultural complex. And that was decided in 1992 after many meetings with Pramukh Swami and the senior sadhus. And then all the volunteers, they were all inspired, and in their own fields, the work started in late 1992. The foundation raft was laid, and then the stonework had already started in India, but the stonework in this country started in 1993. And within 2.5 years, the whole temple, by August 1995, the temple was complete. So the stones from Bulgaria and Italy, if you think about it, it will take you 10, 15, 20 years to probably complete a project like this. But Pramukh Swami Maharaj, he galvanized everyone. We want to finish. He had given the date of 1995. We want to finish by the summer of 1995. And on the 20th of August 1994, when Swami was in London, he actually gave the date that this time next year, on the 20th of August 1995, we must open this temple. And then the stones that from Bulgaria, the marble from Italy, all had to go to India. It was all carved by hand carved by experts, craftsmen, and then that had to be shipped to this country. And some of the people, the craftsmen, they also had to come to this country, and they, along with the help of the volunteers, they constructed and put together this mandir, 26,000 pieces of marble, of limestone, and granite was all put together to bring up this temple, and it was ready by the 20th of August 1995.
So nothing like this had ever been done before, I think, in the Western world. Such an enormous project, a very bold project. There must have been doubts and fears along the journey. And how were those fears allayed, and what were those doubts and fears?
There were doubts from the beginning that a project of this
magnitude.
a project this big would be very difficult to actually do in this country and complete in this country. There were many, many challenges, but one was obviously funds, that how to raise the money, because there was no external funding or no government funding or no grants that were given or even taken at the time. It was purely an effort by the Hindu community. So the devotees, they gave their donations. They also inspired others to donate as well, fundraising within the wider community. And through projects like can collections, like our kids, our boys and girls, they would collect aluminium cans, which would go for recycling. So that was their way of contributing for the festival. Our kishores and kishoris, the teenagers, they put on cultural performances around the country. That was another way of raising funds. People would go door to door to members of the wider community as well, that if they wish to contribute to this temple, they were welcome to do so. And many people in the community, they also contributed in this way to the building of this temple. There were challenges. People thought that this is too difficult, especially the stonework, but everything just fell into place because they had the constant inspiration. Pramukh Sai Maharaj was on the phone, probably every other day to the trustees, to the people who were involved, the engineers, the architects, and they would give him an update. They would present any challenges to him, and he would give them a solution. So in this way, he had almost like constant overseeing over the project for 3 years continuously. Wherever he was traveling at the time, he may have been in a small village in India, but he would constantly be in touch. If you look at the letters that Swami had written at that time, there was no mobile phones in those days, but Swami Shri literally wrote letters every 2 or 3 days to the people who were involved in the project. And if necessary, he would speak to them by phone as well. So his constant supervision, constant encouragement and inspiration, and that enthused the devotees to continue and work and serve to ensure that this project was completed on time.
So he's personally involved on a day-to-day basis throughout the whole project?
Absolutely. Because this was the first project of its kind, as you mentioned, outside India.
Yeah.
And there were many projects after that, the temples in America, but because this was the first time outside India, Pramukh Sai Maharaj, obviously through with the help of senior Swamis like Mahant Swami or Ishwaracharan Swami and other Swamis and other devotees in India, they would constantly be, on top of this project. At that time, there were no sadhus as well in this country, based in the UK. They were only placed here after the mandir was opened in 1995. So the local devotees here, and they were in constant touch with India as well. And Swami Shri played a big role because this was the first mandir outside India, presenting so many different challenges which needed to be addressed.
It was a mammoth volunteer effort. I remember myself seeing professionals, leading businessmen, men and women, and ordinary people working on the building site, giving up their time. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that before in this country, and bringing the community together in this project.
Yes, it was a mix of people, and that was the good thing about it. There was no differentiation, like this guy's a professional and this guy's a shopkeeper or whatever. Everyone was one, working side by side, serving side by side, and everyone had their role to play. Even like the women, they may be involved in looking after the catering facilities, but where they could also get involved, like polishing the marble, they also played their role as well. Where the youngsters, obviously they're not allowed on the construction site, but where they could play their role for the temple, they also, so that sense of belonging also came. There's still people today that, say that I helped to build this temple by collecting aluminium cans or
Yeah.
by going out, during these cultural performances. So that sense of pride, that sense of belonging, at that time we didn't realize, but Pramukh Sai Maharaj instilled that in all these people, young and old, men and women, that they felt that this mandir is ours, and that's one of the reasons why they continue to serve the temple and the community even today. And they will pass those values on to their children as well.
My father often spoke about the divinity and spirituality of Yogiji Maharaj. He radiated so much warmth to all those fortunate enough to have his darshan. What do you think he would have said if he could see how far BAPS has come today in those 50 years? It's an incredible organization. It's a very unique organization, very different from what it was in 1970. What do you think he would have said seeing it today?
If Yogiji Maharaj saw what he saw, what we have today, the temple in London, various BAPS Swaminarayan temples around the UK, also in Europe, then he would definitely be giving blessings to everyone who was involved in that work. Because Yogiji Maharaj, even many years ago, even before the temple in London, he would offer prayers in Gondal at the sacred Aksharderi, the Samadhi shrine, the memorial shrine of Akshar Brahm Guratitanand Swami. So in Gondal, Yogiji Maharaj used to pray every single day that, may satsang increase around the world so that people become happy spiritually. And at that time, people literally used to say, why are you even wasting your time saying this? Because we can see that, no one's coming to this place and there's hardly any devotees, etc., etc. But Yogiji Maharaj had so much faith that Bhagwan Swaminarayan will fulfill all our sankalps, all our wishes. So if Yogiji Maharaj could see what is happening today, he would be thanking Bhagwan Swaminarayan for fulfilling the wishes, because he can see that the prayers that he had done have all been answered. And he would be happy, especially I'm seeing the younger generation, the boys and the girls, what we call Baraks and Barikas, Kishors and Kishoris, engaging in devotion, engaging in satsang, and understanding what our Hindu dharma is, understanding our values, understanding our sanskars, and leading pure life despite being in a country like this, where, it's easily, anyone can be swayed or enticed by what's happening around them.
So if you could encapsulate Yogiji Maharaj's vision for BAPS in a few sentences, what would you say would be his vision for BAPS?
So Yogiji Maharaj's vision for BAPS, as we call it, BAPS Swaminarayan Sanstha, or even the whole world or Hinduism in general, his vision would be that, people lead lives which are pure, free of addictions, lives that help people serve the community that they live in, lives that are wedded to spirituality, because apart from helping the whole world, you also have to help yourself. So if you have that spirituality, then you will also be inspired to help other people. So Yogiji Maharaj's vision would be that, let's prepare the younger generation. The elders, they know what our dharma is, our Sanatan Hindu dharma. The elders, they know our codes of conduct, how we should behave. But if that can be passed on to the younger generation and the generation beneath them as well, then this will be sustained for hundreds and hundreds of years. And that happens through mandirs. So that's why Yogiji Maharaj was so insistent when he first came that please prepare a place for a mandir. And that's why he also said that in the future, a beautiful temple will come up as well. So through mandirs, through all these community activities, through our religious assemblies, through community work where we can also serve others, Yogiji Maharaj is saying that this is the way that we should be leading our lives, dedicated to spirituality and dedicated to seva, helping the community.
The temple opened in 1995. It was a huge moment for the Hindu community, for the Indian community. What message do you think it sent to the wider British community?
For the wider British community, Pramukh Sai Maharaj often taught that, whatever faith you may belong to, what's important is that you practice the faith you put into practice the beliefs of that faith. So become better people so that you can inspire others. Pramukh Sai Maharaj wasn't about that everyone must become a Hindu. It doesn't matter if you belong to another religion. The important thing is that you must have faith and you must observe the tenets, or you must observe the codes of that religion perfectly. Otherwise, there's no point in, calling yourself this and then you're not actually putting into practice what you should be doing. And we know that when the temple was opened, primarily, obviously, it's a temple for Hindus. And so many Hindus have come for darshan and will come for darshan. But we saw that non-Hindus were also coming to the temple, which wasn't expected. Pramukh Swami Maharaj had said that the stones will inspire spirituality, but no one realized to what extent. That so many people of all faiths and some of non-faiths as well, no faiths, they came to this temple, have been coming to this temple, and have gone away inspired. So Swami Shri had a wider vision. Even the exhibition that we have on the ground floor of the temple. At that time, it was suggested to Swami. It was Swami Shri's idea that we need to have an exhibition. So some of the Swamis decided, and they put forward a plan to Pramukh Swami, that we want to explain the history of this temple, and go through that in detail. So anyone who comes to this temple, they realize how this temple was built. Swami Shri, he said that that's okay, you can have this history, but let's have something on trying to understand what Hindu Dharma is. So he gave the idea for this special exhibition, Understanding Hinduism. For people to understand what our culture is, what our religion is, what Hinduism has given to the world, what India has given to the world. And even now, though it's in a very small space, relatively small space, the exhibition, people understand what Hindu Dharma is. Otherwise, they never would have understood what Hinduism is. It's cows and curries and caste or whatever. But that's so far from Hinduism. But people understand when they see the exhibition what Hindu Dharma really is, our Sanatan Hindu Dharma. And when they see the images, the sacred images, the murtis, when they see the pillars or the carvings or the dome, they are also inspired that, this is something different. It's not just beauty, but it's spiritual beauty. And in that way, people get messages and people are inspired to lead lives of character and lives of service.
So in terms of when the temple opened, what I was trying to explore, in terms of the socio-economic political impact, what message did that send out to the wider community? Do you feel that it put our community on the map?
Most definitely. It was not meant to. That wasn't one of the prime purposes that we want to show this off. Yeah. But naturally, something like this happening in the middle, or in London itself, in a country that's visited by, millions of visitors from all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's brought something to London, traditional Hindu architecture, traditional Hindu way of life. And people come to understand what India is, what Hindu Dharma is, what our culture is. So most certainly it has put India, especially on the map of London. And people say that, I've been to India and visited temples, but I've not seen a temple like this. Yeah. So definitely it helps them, helps to bring India here and Hinduism here as well. And that's what Swami Shri's wish was, that people understand they don't necessarily have to come all the way to India to understand what Hindu Dharma is about, to understand what our Indian culture is about. And that was one of the reasons as well, many years ago, in 1985 as well, I remember there was a special issue of Garvi Gujarat as well, dedicated to the Cultural Festival of India. Yes. So that was one of the precursors of this temple.
Yes.
The volunteers who were involved in that Cultural Festival of India, bringing India to London, were the same volunteers who Swami Shri trusted to complete this temple. So that was like a precursor for people to understand that India has many things to offer to us. Hindu Dharma has many things to teach us. And that's led to culminated in the building and opening of this temple.
in my mind, when the temple opened, it actually made a statement to show the economic and political power of the community, the Indian community in the UK. So I just wanted you to, how you feel about that. Did it make a statement in terms of the Indian community is quite a powerful community to politicians and the wider community here?
That was like by and by like a side product that happened. Like it was not meant to be a statement, but it became a statement.
Yeah.
Because so many people and, so many, the media as well, was so much taken back or impressed or whatever. In 1995, I remember when I wasn't here personally, but the media coverage of the procession in central London, and then the media coverage of the temple itself as well, everyone was like flocking to the temple. And even since then, many have flocked to the temple wanting to do interviews or, cover the temple in media outlets or whatever. But obviously that in itself is a statement that, people think that this temple is something different. And it shows that like what the Indian community can actually achieve in this country. We know that many of them came almost penniless from East Africa, especially in 1972 after the Exodus in Uganda. But many others had come from East Africa. Many had come from India with basically nothing, just to build better lives in the 60s and in the 70s. And here we were in 1995 with this beautiful, majestic temple, which obviously doesn't come at, doesn't come free. But these people had worked hard. They had all chipped away, giving their time, giving their money, giving their energy. And they showed that, what the actual community can do, what the community can achieve if it puts its mind to it. So that was a statement in itself, despite the fact that, economically, it may not have been great at that time. We know that we had recessions in the early 1990s. But despite that, the whole community pulled together. And with what Pramukh Sai Maharaj explained from the beginning, that if you work together with some Surat Bhav Ekta, work together, cooperate with each other, then there's no end to what you cannot achieve. And another thing he always used to teach us as well, that, don't worry about the credit. You're doing this for God. You're doing this for Yogi Ji Maharaj. So no one was doing this for any personal name or fame. There's not one name written anywhere in the temple that this person contributed this much or this person contributed this much. Everyone was willingly, everyone was willing to donate anonymously. And it's not like we had millionaires or anything. People were giving pennies, people were giving a few pounds, but because there were so many people giving and enthusiastic, that's how everything came together. And it showed that what the Indian community can achieve if everyone works together in that spirit of support and cooperation.
Yeah. So every major British politician, royalty, have all come to the temple. And especially at election time, so many politicians there come to canvass votes. What does it feel to have this kind of recognition from, let's say, the establishment, let's say?
Again, it helps us to understand what Pramukh Sai Maharaj said, that Patthar Satsang Karaushe, the stones will inspire spirituality. Because it's not like, we go begging to anyone and say, please come to the temple or please come to the assembly. You must come to the temple to visit. People want to come because they must be hearing about, what the temple is achieving in the wider community. And they realize that here is a place which is where members of the community selflessly get together so they can better their own lives and also help to inspire others to serve in the wider community. So that's why, we have politicians or royalty, they have come to this temple when they hear about it. And it makes us feel good, but at the end of the day, it's because of what Swamiji said, that the stones will inspire spirituality. And we understand the truth of those words. At that time, even when Yogi Ji Maharaj said in 1970 that, a spire temple, a traditional temple will come up in London in the future. No one could believe it at that time. And when Pramukh Swami said in 1995 that, people will come here, people will be inspired by the stones, people felt like, oh, how can anyone be inspired by a stone? But we see it today. That is the greatness of, spiritual leaders like Yogi Maharaj and Pramukh Sai Maharaj, that they are inspired by God to make such statements.
So how difficult has that been, trying to achieve that unity between various Hindu organizations in the UK?
It has its challenges, as you explained, but we have to put our personal beliefs there for our own spirituality and devotion. We have to understand that people come from different backgrounds. People may have different beliefs, but just having that common belief that we are Hindus, we are part of this Sanatan Dharma. And if we understand that and that doesn't divide us, then we can all come together and work for a common goal. And Pramukh Sai Maharaj, time and time again, he encouraged all Hindus to come together and do this sort of thing, that understanding, dialogue, and working together will help us to unite. So there are challenges, we understand, but just trying to just engage in dialogue, and hopefully those will find a solution to the challenges that we are currently facing.
So as head saint of the Mandir, how do you manage the temple? Is it like being CEO of a medium to large size business? How do you manage?
It's, I wouldn't call it a CEO, like we have, we have our management. So we have our trustees.
Yeah.
So, and we have senior management and various layers of management. So they look after the day-to-day affairs of our organization in the UK and Europe, and also the day-to-day activities of our temple here in London. And also each temple have their own local management structures as well. So they are involved in the management of the temple. Ours is a slightly based management role, but it's more spiritual. So the sadhus, there's 19 of us here based currently at the temple. Yeah. So ours is more a spiritual role, and connecting, communicating with our devotees. If they have questions, spiritual counseling, offering discourses, that role we continue to play, but obviously we have to do that through online media, virtually, without actually physically meeting up with the devotees. We continue that role as sadhus, and where necessary, where it's necessary to get involved in the management, with the consultation of our trustees and senior management, we take part, or we get involved in that as well, to ensure smooth running of the temple and also the organization in the UK and also in Europe.
So what next then for BAPS in the UK? In terms of the next 25 years, what would you like to see, and what is your vision?
So over the next 25 years, so like Pramukh Swami Maharaj explains to us that we understand what our dharma is, what our culture is, and it's important that we remain firm in our conduct, our dharma, so that we can inspire anyone who comes into our contact, and we can pass on those values, those sanskars, to the younger generation. And like Swami Shri said when this temple opened, that this temple is a gift for generations, not one generation, but generations to come. So to continually sustain that understanding of Hindu Dharma, that understanding of our culture, because that in itself will tell us that, what sort of life we need to lead. That will tell us that how I should interact with people. That will teach us, how can I serve the community? So, and that will make us better people. It will help us to study. It will help us to enhance our careers, etc. So just following those ideals of Hindu Dharma and understanding our culture, that in itself will help us to progress in our lives in many, many different fields. So passing on this knowledge and passing on these values to the younger generation, that is what we see, or what we would like for the next 25 years, because that will continually be sustained over hundreds and hundreds of years. Because Swami Shri said when this temple was built, that, this is built to last 1,000 years. So it's not like, it's here today and not there tomorrow. And to sustain that, because we know that the temple was built, the temple was open, but then to keep the mandir, to maintain the temple, not just physically, but we need an army, literally an army of volunteers. So day in and day out, every single day, we have our volunteers that come in to serve at the temple. At the weekends, those who can't come on the weekdays because they're working, they come on Saturdays and Sundays to serve. So continuously doing that seva to ensure that the mandir, the satsang, the activities of the temple are sustained. That is one of the things that, that's most important that we need to sustain over the next 25 years. So we continue to pass on these values to not only just our Hindu children, but also to the wider community.